You're very welcome along this evening. So it's one of those nights which could absolutely define a generation of Irish footballers. 5 years on from holding that press conference at Liberty Hall, the Republic of Ireland stand on the precipice of World Cup qualification. We are very much in Glasgow this evening. Live commentary of Scotland versus the Republic of Ireland is here and Off the Ball. Kick-off is at 8 o'clock. All the build-up on the way. As ever, you'll get us on 53106. We are at Off the Ball on Twitter. Great to have you with us. Updates, of course, on a Champions League evening which was underway over the last couple of hours, but the Irish national team is taking centre stage. Emma Byrne will be alongside Nathan Murphy for commentary. Nathan, we can hear you there. We can hear Glasgow in the background. Good evening.
Hey Joe, good evening.
Not every day an Irish team can qualify for a World Cup.
No, that is for sure. The moments where Ireland qualify for major tournaments are ones that Irish sports fans remember for decades and even longer, and that is the opportunity that presents itself for the Republic of Ireland tonight. This is a moment that has been building quite rapidly, I feel, over the last couple of years, in particular since Vera Pauw took charge. There's been a real sense that this group have been destined for something great. There have been slip-ups along the way, there's no question about that, but they find themselves now potentially 90 minutes away from a place in the World Cup finals. I say potentially because, as we know, it's a very convoluted playoff system that we have that may get even more convoluted over the next hour or so.
Well, indeed. We're watching two other games progress at the moment, where currently Portugal and Iceland is 0-0. Second half just started. Switzerland and Wales 0-0. And in those respective games, we would like Portugal to come good against Iceland. We would like Wales to come good against Switzerland. There is a point system at the moment which obviously takes into account qualification thus far. Switzerland on 19 points, Iceland on 18 points, Ireland on 17, and 2 of the 3 will go directly to the World Cup. A win in normal time or extra time is 3 points, a win on penalties is a point. That will become much clearer across the course of this evening. We'll keep you updated if that's tricky to follow, because it is a bit tricky, Nathan, and we could end up talking goal difference and other permutations. Hopefully, for all our sakes, we don't get into that.
What we want is a scenario where the Republic of Ireland know at kick-off that a victory pre-penalties, because part of this is that they give a point for winning on penalties, but 3 points if you win any time before the end of extra time, but that they go into this knowing that a victory, and that they can celebrate if they get that victory on 90 minutes or on 120 minutes, know that they're going to a World Cup finals rather than to that playoff in New Zealand in February. If it is that playoff in New Zealand in February, Ireland will be by far and away the strongest team at that event and will be overwhelming favourites to take one of the qualification places, but there's always the potential of a banana skin along the way, and you just want tonight to be the night. And there's definitely a sense, being around Hampden, of reality setting in. Anyone who was in Tallaght the night of the Finland game, it felt like something enormous had been achieved that night by getting to the playoff, but then you're here and you realise that that suddenly counts for very, very little if Ireland can't get the job done this evening.
Yeah, the very simple permutation is Ireland lose this evening and it's game over.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing maybe people got confused about when you talk about league tables and points. You have to win this game. First and foremost, whatever way possible, you have to win this game. If Ireland lose, they are out. And that long, long, long wait for a first ever appearance at a major finals goes on for another couple of years.
Lots of football on in Glasgow this evening. There is a Champions League game 2 miles up the road. What kind of crowd are we expecting at Hampden?
I have to say, Joe, it is an absolute disgrace that this game is happening tonight in Glasgow. I don't know what UEFA are thinking. It is total disrespect to both teams involved. Firstly, having 3-4 days to prepare for this, for family, for friends, for supporters, to try and organise a trip to Glasgow, not knowing would it be Glasgow or Austria. I was online watching Scotland-Austria, booking my flights as it finished, and it was pretty much impossible to get one. I was on the flight over this afternoon. It was full of Celtic supporters. It was very hard to find an Irish supporter. Judging from people I've been talking to around Glasgow since I landed in, it seems a lot of the family and the friends managed to find a way, flying into Edinburgh, into Newcastle, getting the ferry over the last couple of days. But the sheer cost made it just too expensive at such short notice for a large group of Irish supporters to come. And we've seen the crowds that have been going to Tallaght in recent weeks, and you would have loved if this was an opportunity, even for those busloads of supporters who've been coming from Galway or from Donegal, had a few weeks to plan for this and could come over and make a real trip of this and get behind the Irish team. But that is simply not possible. It's not exactly coming into the Lions Den here. I was here a fortnight ago for the men's game, and there was 50,000 people here, and it was rocking an hour before kickoff. It was a sensational atmosphere. They're expecting somewhere just over 10,000. They'd over 10,000 for the game against Austria on Thursday night, which was a record for the Scottish team. Probably something similar tonight, but they haven't been helped, of course, by the fact that Celtic are playing tonight in the Champions League and Rangers are playing at home against Liverpool tomorrow night in the Champions League. So it's a massive couple of days in Glasgow. Around the stadium, to be perfectly honest, you wouldn't have really known there was a big game happening. The Scottish FA don't seem to have done anything in terms of fan zones or stuff an hour before kick-off to get people in. And it feels very low-key. And in one sense, you want this to be a big occasion, but maybe if you're Ireland coming into a game of this magnitude, you're quite happy to be coming to a stadium and a home side that maybe aren't getting the level of support that they would have wanted.
Yes, big picture, it's a poor reflection on the women's game and highlights where it needs to go. Short term, maybe we'll take it in the short term just for this evening. Yeah, UEFA, it makes no sense. I mean, this would have been very avoidable. It makes absolutely
no. When you think about it, Joe, I'm fairly sure, for example, St Mirren couldn't play St Johnstone tonight in the Scottish League because of UEFA regulations around domestic fixtures and Champions League and Europa League games, but they will allow one of the biggest games in the women's game go up against a Champions League game in the same city at the exact same time. You look on the UEFA website, you have to scroll down to even find this match. So and we do want everyone to start taking this seriously and more seriously, it's got to start at the very top. And why this game couldn't have taken place next Friday night when there's no other football on, when it can properly be the big occasion that it should be, I just do not understand it.
So, team news, Ireland have been hit with several injuries to several big players. So, talk us through how Vera Pauw is approaching this evening then. Team is in an incredibly experienced Republic of Ireland side. Niamh Fahey is back fit. She missed the 2 games last month, but she returns, a 105th cap for the Galwegian in what is once again 3 at the back for Ireland. Combined age 101 of Niamh Fahey, Louise Quinn and Diane Caldwell. And Niamh Fahey, as I say, 105 caps. Louise Quinn winning her 99th cap tonight, and Diane Caldwell her 91st cap. So it's as experienced a back 3 as you can get. Courtney Brosnan seems to have grown in confidence throughout this campaign in the Irish goal. She starts once again. The difficulty for Vera Pauw is in midfield. Megan Connolly is a huge loss. Ruisha Littlejohn had emerged as the campaign went on once again to take a place. She's out, and then Jess Zhu had started against Finland. She's picked up a really nasty ACL injury and probably even going to be a doubt for the World Cup should Ireland get there. So those 3 drop out. Fahey comes in place of Connolly. Lily Agg, who was the heroine of that goal, with that goal against Finland in Tallaght Stadium, she'll start in the middle of midfield alongside Denise O'Sullivan. And Anya O'Gorman gets her first competitive start in a year. Quite incredible. Anya O'Gorman and Diane Caldwell made their debut all the way back in 2006. 16 and a half years ago since they started playing for the Republic of Ireland. Anya O'Gorman, another incredibly experienced player, 112th cap for her this evening. So, as I say, Fahey, Quinn, Caldwell will be the back 3. Jamie Finn on the right. Megan Campbell will be the real threat with the throw-ins on the left-hand side. Denise O'Sullivan and Lily Agg in the middle of midfield. Anya O'Gorman and Katie McCabe just in front of them. And Heather Payne will have that somewhat thankless task yet again of leading the line for the Republic of Ireland. Scotland, just the one change for them from the victory against Austria. That game may give us a sense of what to expect tonight. All the playoffs on Thursday night were incredibly scrappy, nervous games because of what is at stake. Expect something similar this evening. Scotland are very, very confident. Talking to the Scottish reporters since we got here this evening, like, they are the bookies' favourites, strong favourites, and they feel they can really get at Ireland, particularly that Irish midfield from what they've seen. They have a couple of standout names, much like Ireland, with Denise O'Sullivan and Katie McCabe, Erin Cuthbert at Chelsea, and Caroline Weir at Real Madrid, who just joined from Manchester City and actually scored the goal that knocked Manchester City out of the Champions League for Real Madrid just a few weeks back. They're by far and away the star names in this Scottish side. As I said, they've been to the World Cup. They were at the last World Cup finals. They are a team who have a very strong pedigree. They are missing arguably their biggest talent in Kim Little, who retired from international football, still only 31, should be playing, but stepped away a couple of years ago. But this is a Scottish side who are coming here tonight very much expecting to get a place at the World Cup finals. I'm seeing good news. Portugal have taken the lead against Iceland, 55 minutes on the clock, so that keeps Iceland very much on 18 points and very easy and possible for Ireland to leapfrog them at least. Yeah. So and that side of things, so far so good. The most
simple one is, as you said, Iceland or Switzerland lose over the next hour, and then it'll be very straightforward for Ireland.
On Scotland, I'm seeing some of the same confidence I suspect you are, and I appreciate they have the heritage of having been to major tournaments, but in many respects, in Cuthbert and Weir, they have two world-class players. In McCabe and O'Sullivan, Ireland have two world-class players. Scotland are ranked 23 in the FIFA rankings. Ireland are 26. They have been relatively evenly matched of late. So, home form aside, I can't fully get my head around why they are favourites to this extent.
No, I think it's just that, and I think the fact that they've qualified for a World Cup finals before, because when you look at it on paper, and also you look at their qualification campaign, they were thumped 8-0 by Spain during the qualification campaign. The one thing that gives you real confidence around Ireland tonight is that Vera Pauw has prepared this side relentlessly for the last couple of years for these sort of occasions. Yes, it hasn't been pretty at times, but Ireland have become very, very good at grinding out results. The draw over in Sweden, even the home match right at the start of the campaign, keeping it very, very tight. They tend not to give up too many opposition opportunities. They tend not to create enough at the other end of the pitch, and maybe not get enough out of Denise O'Sullivan and Katie McCabe. But we saw in the two matches against Finland in particular the maturity of this side right now that was built off that long losing streak after the devastation of what happened against Ukraine in the qualification campaign for the European Championship, where Vera Pauw's response was, I'm going to put them up against some of the best teams in the world. They lost a lot of games there, but it meant that when it came around and finally they got that win against Australia, they were ready to kick on, and they're used to games like this. They're very, very well organised, and that in a playoff game is what you need, because this does feel, as much as you can ever predict, like a game where one goal might well be enough.
Our football show coverage is brought to you by Sky. Outbelieve together as our women's national team face Scotland in this World Cup playoff this evening. We'll chat to Emma Byrne in due course. Nathan, thanks for the time being.
Thanks, Joe.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, for an effortless finish to your day. New Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
You're very welcome back. We've just checked in with Nathan Murphy, who's in Glasgow. Emma Byrne will be with us very shortly. We are very much bringing you the Newsround now. It is, as ever, brought to you with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day, which means Mick McCarthy is here in studio. Good evening.
Good evening, Joe.
And Richie McCormack is with us. Hello, sir.
Hello, lads.
So let's get the ball rolling. We checked in with Nathan. Rich, I guess that's your top story as well.
Yeah, the Republic of Ireland could find themselves qualified for a Women's World Cup finals for the very first time tonight. They face Scotland in that playoff at Hampden Park. Knowing a win would seal at least an intercontinental playoff, but if Wales or Portugal beat Switzerland or Iceland respectively, then a win for Vera Pauw's side at Hampden will see them qualify automatically. So those latest scores from Paços de Ferreira in Portugal, it is currently Portugal 1, Iceland 1. Iceland have equalised despite going down to 10 players, and it's also 1-1 in Zurich, where Switzerland are up against Wales. Both of those matches have now passed the hour mark. Scotland are favourites for tonight's game at Hampden, but Ireland captain Katie McCabe has been assessing their quality on the pitch.
A lot of quality in the team. I think having the likes of Caroline Weir and Erin Cuthbert in that midfield, they're going to be dangerous, and they'll be looking to get into the pockets, as Vera said. But for us, it's about nullifying their strengths and making sure we kind of get at their weaknesses as well. And I think they possess the ball. I think it's obviously Pedro's style is to keep the ball and really possess teams and get teams moving. So they'll be looking to probably do that tomorrow night. So we need to be prepared for that. But yeah, it'll be an interesting game.
The Scottish manager Pedro signed Katie McCabe for Arsenal. That's why she's so familiar with them. On the permutation situation, so those latest scores Richie gave us after the hour mark, 1-1 in both games. It doesn't change things dramatically. Switzerland go from 19 points to 20. Iceland go from 18 points to 19. Ireland are on 17, so they can certainly leapfrog Iceland with a win. We won't labour the permutation situation.
But that game
I suppose
will go to penalties if it stays the same, and they can get an extra point for winning those penalties. You know, so I don't think it's quite like either of those teams win, that like as in go through, as in they win their penalties and then Ireland have to win. But I think if Ireland win in normal time and either of those teams win on penalties, we're still third ranked. Isn't that right? Like, it doesn't end in a draw.
Well, the very simple point.
Sorry.
Very simple point.
But these things need to be clarified.
Yeah, is Ireland cannot lose. And
that's it.
Our starting point for, because permutations on the radio can be fun and games and it's hard for people to keep track of all the numbers. So as a starting point, Ireland cannot lose this evening. And we should know, I mean, there's about, 30 minutes left. So we should know, as Ireland are walking out of the tunnel and getting ready to go, exactly what they need to do. And so that will clear things up. So we don't need to spend the next half hour.
No, but again, if those games go to extra time, which I suppose is likely, and then penalties, what we will know then is by the second half of the game, we'll know exactly what Ireland need to do as well. You know what I mean? Again, there is just a lot of those games are playoffs in themselves, I suppose, you know, and like, again, it's the league format, but it's not a league format. We should just talk about how UEFA have just made an absolute balls of this. There's literally no need for it to be so complicated. It's absolutely horrendous, like.
It doesn't make things ideal, I suppose, from let's, you know, invest everybody instantly, like when you have to do so much work to find out what's happening. But we'll know certainly for a good chunk of the Ireland game. Well, let's not focus on this.
Ireland need to win.
The human drama of the situation.
Ireland need to win. If Ireland win, they're still in the World Cup. They could be going directly, or they could be going to a tournament which they're likely to win.
Yes.
Okay, so this is basically a World Cup playoff. Okay.
In effect,
No,
yeah.
we're going to be worried about the permutations.
Strange approach to this conversation, Michael. Let's talk about the drama, the human drama, what this team have been through over the last 5 years.
No, I'm not. I'm just trying to be positive.
From 5 years ago, when
Tell you what, though.
the situation was on the floor and they had to hold a press conference, and we talked to Emma Byrne, who'll be with us very shortly, at length about this at the Baker Street Roadshow recently, where, I mean, she was trying to gather this team together, a lot of young players, Katie McCabe included. Those younger players were being threatened by FAI channels that if they partook in this press conference, they might never play for Ireland again. Mightn't be good for your career.
Yep.
She was getting very concerned phone calls from parents, from younger players. They pressed ahead anyway. They drew national attention to this. And now within 5 years, they are on the precipice. I mean, that is the story.
Oh, 100%, yeah. And that was anyone who was there that night or have heard Emma Byrne since, who may have had possibly a passing interest in the women's team or just kind of getting more into it as time goes by. I think there's a greater appreciation, having heard that story from Emma Byrne all these years later, of what they're on the verge of achieving tonight, you know. So it's been an amazing journey, really, isn't it? Like, I remember that 5 years ago, like, it doesn't feel that long even. It actually doesn't even feel like 5 years ago. I remember that story so well. I remember how we covered it. And yeah, to go from there to here, and we're talking about, you know, get to the World Cup here. Maybe the next Euros campaign is in the Aviva. I think it's likely at this stage. You know, it's just a completely different outlook. It's brilliant.
Yeah. So Emma Byrne with us very shortly. Kick-off is at 8 o'clock. There is Champions League ongoing, Rich?
Yeah, there is in Group G of the Champions League tonight. Both of these matches into their final quarter hour. The ones that kicked off at 5:45 at least. It's still Copenhagen 0, Manchester City 0. There was a pretty eventful first half at the Parken Stadium there. City had a goal in the net thanks to Rodri, but it was ruled out by VAR. VAR subsequently intervened to give City a penalty a few minutes later. Riyad Mahrez stood up to take it, and it was subsequently saved. And then another VAR review saw Sergio Gomez dismissed prior to half-time as well. But it still remains goalless. The City win would see them qualify for the last 16 tonight. There's an 8 p.m. start to the group's other game. Jorge Sampaoli is now in charge of Sevilla for their game with Borussia Dortmund. Celtic, meanwhile, will pay tribute, much like Ireland and Scotland, tonight to the lives lost at Creasla ahead of their Group F meeting with RB Leipzig. A few changes for Celtic tonight. It looks like a change in formation as well from last week's defeat in Germany. Joe Hart starts in goal. A back four then of Josip Juranovic, Cameron Carter-Vickers, who returns in place of Stephen Welsh. Moritz Jens and Greg Taylor are the back four. In midfield then, it's Matt O'Reilly and Rio Hatate in front of them. Lil Abada, who of course played for Israel's under-21s against their Irish counterparts quite recently. Saya Habzakanovic and Daisen Maeda. And then Kyogo Furuhashi is up front. Elsewhere in that group, Real Madrid can also book a place in the last 16 if they beat Shakhtar Donetsk in Warsaw. Chelsea, they're at the San Siro to play AC Milan, comfortable winners at Stamford Bridge against the same opposition last week in Group E. Chelsea line out with Kepa Arrizabalaga in goal. A back three then of Trevoh Chalobah, Thiago Silva and Kalidou Koulibaly. Across the midfield, it's Reece James, Mateo Kovacic, Jorginho and Ben Chilwell, with Raheem Sterling and Mason Mount supporting Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Group leader Salzburg are also on the road tonight. They face Dinamo Zagreb. And there was a 5:45 start in Group H, where it's Maccabi Haifa 2, Juventus 0. Real pressure now Massimiliano Allegri in the Juventus gig with 9 minutes to go in Israel, trailing what were supposed to be the group whipping boys by 2-0. The top two in that group remain unbeaten. Paris Saint-Germain welcoming Benfica to the Parc des Princes tonight. PSG's preparations for that game hit with the supposed news that Kylian Mbappe wants to leave the club in January. He signed a new contract in the summer, and the 23-year-old reportedly feels betrayed by the club's board. Le Parisien reporting that today, along with RMC Sport. Sporting director Luis Campos was also believed to have told the club that he wants to leave, but he's since told Canal Plus tonight that he's been with Mbappe every day, and the player has never told him nor the president that he wants to leave in January. And Campos adds that he's only speaking because these stories are so serious to be published before such a big game. So oodles and oodles of cold water being poured on those Le Parisien reports this evening.
Okay. And do we know why Mbappe feels betrayed by the board?
It doesn't say. It literally just said in the Parisien article this afternoon and in RMC that he felt betrayed. Quite how that worked into also affecting Luis Campos. The two of them have been together since Mbappe was a teenager. Of course, Campos was the man in charge upstairs at Monaco when Mbappe made his breakthrough there, and their careers have been pretty much interlinked. He took on the sporting director job in place of Leonardo in the summer. But details on why he felt betrayed, not quite there. I don't know if it's tied to the sporting director nature of his new contract, etc. But that row with Neymar isn't going away. Yeah, and I'd imagine that probably has played some part too.
My main takeaway from this evening: don't go to Mick McCarthy for permutations, says Tony. Well, Tony, I couldn't agree more.
Tony. Yeah, you're right, actually. So I'm completely wrong.
Yes,
I'll tell you what happened there, right? One, UEFA got it wrong by making it so complicated, and two, I'm an idiot, right? I was
more to column
taking your point about the games as they currently stand being a point, and that wouldn't be the case, as in there is no draws, it will go to a result. But of course, you were ahead of me, and obviously assigning one of the teams the point you win for winning on penalties, which I, for some reason, translated as an extra point.
No.
Which isn't. You get 1 point for winning on penalties. You get 3 for winning the game as a whole.
Were you thinking for a second? You get your point for your draw, and then you get another point for penalties.
That's what happens in the WSL, the Conti Cup, I think it's called, which is why it's in my head at the moment, because I thought it was an interesting because they have a league format in that, and you get.
Don't start. No, don't.
I actually think it's an interesting way to do things, but it's nothing to do with this. So
I think that what this convoluted system really needed was you getting it wrong and just pouring that bit of oil in.
I just think if I can do a mea culpa, why can't the organisers?
Well, that's true. The latest, by the way, Portugal and Iceland 1-1, Switzerland and Wales 1-1. So they'll be both going to extra time. Again, as things stand, Switzerland are on 19 points going into tonight's game. Iceland on 18 going into tonight's game. Ireland on 17. If you're not interested in following all the various aspects, then the very simple starting point tonight is Ireland have to win. Ireland have to beat Scotland. Scotland very confident here.
Do you know what, Joe, though? That tells me nothing. Scotland are always confident. It's in their blood, I think. The Scots get cocky.
I watched the Austria game. I watched the Austria game the other night on Thursday. Yeah. And the term "no great shakes" came to mind. Apart from the gymnastics that the commentator on BBC Alba was performing all night, whereby he was commentating in Scots Gaelic and then throwing to his co-commentator in English and then jumping back into Scots Gaelic, which is magnificent. But Scotland, they looked like the pitch was very heavy on Thursday night. It would have lightened up a little bit since then, but it was very heavy. It came across as being very big, and it drew a lot out of both sets of players. And Scotland didn't. They struck me as being very similar to ourselves. I mean, being quite honest,
they seem like almost carbon copy in some way. Admittedly, their manager is a bit more progressive and expansive. But if you have their two household names in Erin Cuthbert of Chelsea and Caroline Weir of Real Madrid. Again, that's our Katie McCabe and our Denise O'Sullivan, and then you've got a solid enough base around them. They're 23rd in the FIFA rankings, we're 26th. I know they've been to previous tournaments, but Ireland and Irish football has been in a very unsupported state for a long time, and it's only recently getting its house in order. So you don't read too much into the fact that they've made tournaments that Ireland haven't in the past. So you can add all that up together, and the 10,000 crowd will be somewhat lost in Hampden.
Yeah,
I just don't get the sense raging hot favourites.
I feel like they're favourites. I feel like because they're at home.
Kind of.
And it would be almost, if it was in Tala, it would be nearly us, and that's the way it should be. But this, again, it's because it's Scotland. Look, let's say, we give Wales a lot of crap on this show in general, but who really are the swaggering neighbour here?
Yeah.
The Scots. We only talked about it with their men's team a few weeks ago. Like, you know, they get a couple of wins suddenly. Apparently, like, losing 3-0 to Ireland was like the ultimate disgrace. It was like Steve Clarke's job is on the line. How dare they do that to us? We'll get them back at Hampden. And then celebrated like as if they'd beaten us 10-0 as opposed to nick the lucky win through a lucky penalty.
And their men's rugby team love it. This could be our year.
Stop.
We are the dark horses.
Stop.
Ably supported by Shane Horgan.
I wonder is Hoggy going to be there tonight?
I wouldn't think he will. So we're going over very shortly to Glasgow. A few more stories, Rich. Peter Manny, injury doubt.
Yeah, he has a neck injury and he's going to be assessed this week ahead of Munster's URC meeting with the Vodacom Bulls. That's on Saturday at Thomond. Finnean Wycherley and Mike Haley, both doubts as well. Well, Haley's definitely out. He has a groin injury. Wycherley is nursing a shoulder injury. He too will be assessed. However, the likes of Jack Crowley, Antoine Frisch, Tom Ahern, Diarmuid Barron and co are all available this week, having returned from Emerging Ireland's duty.
Don't mind a Mick. A good mea culpa is an underrated quality in a person, says Graham. I do agree with that.
You know, I was thinking soon after I said it that I very much qualified my mea culpa, though, so I'm not even giving myself credit for that. I'm having a bad night, Joe. Once Ireland go through, I don't mind.
Fair enough. So, this Loud story, Richie?
Yeah, a bit of a mad one, this. Louth GAA say their dream is becoming reality, having been given the green light to access €14.8 million in IIP funding. The Immigrant Investor Programme, devised by the Department of Justice back in 2012, essentially works as a cash for visas scheme for wealthy individuals seeking Irish citizenship. The funds will go towards Louth's proposed new county ground outside Dundalk. Meath used the same scheme to drum up €2 million for the redevelopment of Port Talton in the past couple of years.
Troy Parrott.
Yeah, he's going to play no part in the Republic of Ireland's friendlies next month with Norway and Malta. His Preston manager, Ryan Lowe, says the striker will be out for the foreseeable future. Parrott scored his first goal for Preston in Saturday's win over Norwich, but went down injured while celebrating. Lowe says the injury is not as bad as first feared and hopes the Tottenham low knee will be back when the championship resumes around Christmas time.
Have you seen the celebration, Michael?
I haven't actually seen the celebration. I saw the goal, but I seen him being hobbled off, like he was carried off by like 3 or 4 players, you know, off the pitch. But he came off the bench. Had been playing all year for Preston, playing well, but the lack of goals was, I suppose, getting him. And he's not play. He didn't play for a game and a half. Come on for Seanie Maguire actually at half time, changed the game, set up a goal to put them 2-1 up. Norwich equalised, scores the winner, celebrates, and he's like out until the new year. It's just
Richie. Have you seen this injury-inducing celebration?
I haven't actually, no.
Oh, we need to find out what he did. This does happen a bit. I'm like 90% sure Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did a bit of a number on himself celebrating the goal that won the treble at the Nou Camp.
Really, yeah.
Knee slide is a dangerous thing to do, especially when you've got 8 lads behind you about to jump on you. It just puts your that
on a bone dry pitch.
Not a great position, yeah. So I think he did actually cause knee trouble as a result.
Leon Bailey last year, he was injured when he signed for Villa, and he came on at half time in the game against Everton, forced an own goal, then scored an absolute rocket of a goal, kicked it so hard that he pulled the thigh muscle and was out for about 2 months after it, and literally has never done anything for Villa since. We have like this exciting, it's like very like the Troy Parrott thing, like had a slow start, had this electric 45 minutes where you're thinking, here we go, and then is basically injured, stop-start career ever since. I presume this won't happen for Troy. I really hope it doesn't, but God, he needed that goal.
Yeah.
And we were waiting on it all season. He'd been playing well. He got a lot. Preston fans like him. Been playing at nearly every game, and then celebrating the goal. Out for 3 months.
God.
Least.
Wow. Fellas, we're out of time. We're going to head over to Glasgow very shortly. Richie, thank you very much. Enjoy the game this evening.
Nice and gents.
Cheers. Michael, thank you.
Thanks.
Short break. Emma Burns standing by at Hampden Park. Back there in 1 second.